Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. And how do you do? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. And God loves you. Ooh, ooh. That's right. This is it. Weena B. Cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. What? I love me and I know God loves me because he woke me up this morning. Yes. So y'all know the first 5 minutes of my AA reflection presentation for February 11th. I give myself a testimonial song to pep me up, motivate me, encourage me, and encourage you too. So I'm in love with Lee Williams. And while I get myself together, I want you to listen to this song, okay? And I'll be back in 5 minutes to share from my perspective the AA Daily Reflections reading for the day, The Limits of Self-Reliance. But for right now, let's have a good time praising the God of our understanding. Woo! All right, so here we go. All right, come on now. Here we go. I'll be right back here. Here we go. Yes. Come on, mama. Come on, mama. Listen, everybody, we gotta get with Jesus will be there. You can count on the Lord. Thank him because you know. Praise him like worship. Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. I wonder could I say it again? Come on, children. Come on, mama. Let's have a good time. Woo! Praise him. Woo! Woo! All right. Mwah. Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. I got one more thing I want to tell you. Somebody's here, sitting here today. They won't do nothing, ain't got nothing to say. But if I were you, I wouldn't cheat myself. If they don't wanna go, I can't wait for nobody else. Thank him because you do. Praise him like worship. Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. I wanna ask you one more thing. I wanna ask you one more thing. Did you come here to have a good time? Did you come here to have a good time? But do you really wanna have a good time? Do you really wanna have a good time? But do you know you can have a good time? How many know you can have a good time? How many know you can have a good time? God wants you to have a good time. God wants you to have a good time. Now if you really wanna have a good time, now if you really wanna have a good time, you turn around and tell somebody. Turn around and tell somebody. Come on, let's have a good time. 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 Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. Anybody really wanna have a good time? Anybody really wanna have a good time? How many came here to have a good time? How many came here to have a good time? How many know you can have a good time? How many know you can have a good time? God wants you to have a good time. God wants you to have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. If you really wanna have a good time, if you really wanna have a good time, turn around and tell somebody. Turn around and tell somebody. Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time. 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 Come on, let's have a good time. Thank him Woo! 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 Y'all should see me when I'm in my house of fellowship at Canaan Baptist Church here in Newcastle. And y'all coming there, y'all see this one woman over there. Listen, she's getting it on. She's just dancing and praising as if she's the only one in it. Because she remembers what it was like. And that person is me. Welcome to the February the 11th Alcoholics Anonymous Daily Reflections reading. The Limits of Self-Reliance from Edwina B's perspective. I do not represent Alcoholics Anonymous. That's been in existence for nearly 90 years. But I've been a proud, grateful, and humble member for the past, will be 32 years on February the 23rd. Woo! I'm going to have a good time because I'm sober today and I plan to be sober then. So I'm having a good time because these teeth are going to come out, and that's okay because I'm going to take them out and put them down, all right? But in the meantime, I'm going to keep them in because I know some of y'all, whatever, it don't matter to me because God accepts me just the way I am. So Alcoholics Anonymous, a spiritual program providing spiritual principles in the form of spiritual steps, spiritual traditions, spiritual concepts, right? With a spiritual fellowship. The key word is spiritual. So even though from the beginning and into 5 minutes of my podcast, I tell you, I played my testimonial song, right? And because of this spiritual program, I was able to select a religion of my choice. So I don't mix religion with spirituality. No, I do not. And so that's why I played my religious song that is spiritual in nature, right? To give me the beat, the dance, the praise, the glory, to get this ball rolling and let the spirit within do its thing, okay? So, we also know that we suffer from a fatal disease called alcoholism. And as a result of our disease of alcoholism, we know that some of us must die in order for some of us to live. And that may sound cruel, but that is facts, right? That is the facts, okay? And so because we are introduced either by force, by direction, by guidance, very rarely volunteer, that we are brought to the spiritual program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because religion alone didn't work, the medical field didn't work. Carl Jung, when he talked to Dr. Bob and Bill W. in Europe, he said what y'all need is divine intervention to bring about a spiritual experience that will bring about a spiritual awakening, that will cause a spiritual transformation to have a psychic change. It says in our literature, no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. God could and would if he was sought, whether you know him or not. And I didn't know when I first came in, okay? All right, so let's get to the reading today. You see, I'm early today because, guess what? Life shows up and you make arrangements, but you still do God's will. It doesn't matter. You still do his will. There are no excuses not to do his will. So I'm an hour and maybe an hour and 35, 40 minutes early. That's okay. All right. So get your drink on. Mine's is coffee. Hope yours is juice water. I don't know, depending on where you're watching from. You may be, I don't know. Close your eyes. Hear with your ears, but listen with your spirit what these words have to say. Let's drink to the limits of self-reliance. Okay. Close your eyes now. Come on. I see y'all peeping. All right. It says here, February the 11th, AA Daily Reflections, the limits of self-reliance. We asked ourselves why we had them, fears. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Alcoholics Anonymous, Big Book, page 68. All of my character defects separate me from God's will. When I ignore my association with him, I face the world and my alcoholism alone and must depend on self-reliance. I have never found security and happiness through self-will, and the only result is a life of fear and discontent. God provides the path back to him and to his gift of serenity and comfort. First, however, I must be willing to acknowledge my fears and understand their source and power over me. I frequently ask God to help me understand how I separate myself from him. Woo! Listen, y'all, that's why I love my meetings every day. They just continue to fill me with love, support, and some understanding, clarity, explanations, right? Gratitude. And so when we read something like this, just for today, right, it should empower us to go forth with the armor of God, with the armor of recovery, right? And the armor of recovery is what? Go pray in the morning, go to a meeting, help another alcoholic achieve sobriety, stay sober, right? Keep giving back freely. If I do those things, I am guaranteed to stay sober one day at a time. All right, so let's read it together, okay? All right, so let's go again. February 11th, AA Daily Reflections, the limits of self-reliance. We asked ourselves why we had them, fears. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Alcoholics Anonymous, Big Book, page 68. The alcoholic in recovery shares his perspectives by saying, all of my character defects separate me from God's will. When I ignore my association with him, I face the world and my alcoholism alone and must depend on self-reliance. I have never found security and happiness through self-will, and the only result is a life of fear and discontent. God provides the path back to him and to his gift of serenity and comfort. First, however, I must be willing to acknowledge my fears and understand their source and power over me. I frequently ask God to help me understand how I separate myself from him. All right, so let's this is juicy. Let's get right into it, okay? All right, so no problem. So the first thing it says, the limits. All right, so I always try to use layman terms and give some tangible experience, huh? So even the word limits, right? So when you think about limits, you think about an amount, you think about not going over, you thinking about a certain percentage or a certain amount. You can't go beyond, right? You are somewhat contained. You have a limit. You have a limit. And so look back in your history where you can apply the word limit. Where did you experience limitations? When did you have limits? When did you create limits, right? sort of like, boundaries, limits, And so when you ask yourself, right, limits on what? Limits on this, limits on that, limits on the world, limits on people. But what about limits on self-reliance? What about limits of self-reliance? How many of us thought we were Superman, Superwoman, and found out that we're not? And therefore, our limits was presented to us. We tried to use self-will, self-power, self-motivation, self-this, self. Do you hear the key word? Self. Self-reliance. I am totally relying on self. Alrighty then. So let's get into what they are saying. Okay. He says here, come on now. We asked ourselves why we had them. Why do we have fears? Why do we have fears? Can you answer that? Why do we have fears? Why do you have fears? Where did they start? Where did they come from? How far back in your history can you identify where fear was formulated? And if you're like me doing the 4th step in Alcoholics Anonymous, we have learned that fear is instinctual in some way. And I'm not going to say, let me, I have to research that. So most people think that fear is a learned behavior, right? And so when I think about instinctually, there's that feeling of surprise. There's that feeling of, I want to call it fear, all right? But there's that feeling of, and until I got into this spiritual program, to me, fear was instinctual. Fear was, human characteristic, right? But I've also learned during this journey that fear is a learned behavior as well. So, but now that I'm in this program for a number of years, I've learned that God did not give us the spirit of fear, but I had to learn that. See, I don't act like I know. All right, so it says, why we ask ourselves, why do we have them fears? And so let's acknowledge that we do have them, right? So let's cut through the chase. We have fears, right? And the question is, why do we have them, right? And so this reading is going to help us answer that question, okay? It says, wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Isn't it because self-reliance failed us that fear was created? Think about it. I have this mountain in front of me, this bed, this dresser, whatever, and I want to move it out the way, right? And I can do it. And I go to administer the pressure and more power, and I can't do it because I'm relying on self. And so now I begin to create doubt in me. I begin to create fear in me. I can't do this, right? That's just one analogy. You come up with your own, all right? Because I got to get out of here soon, all right? And so wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? So go back to Alcoholics Anonymous, page 68, to read the whole chapter, the whole paragraph, to get the full implication of what the author is trying to convey. So let's see what this alcoholic in recovery has from his perspective, and I will include mine. He says, all of my character defects separate me from God's will. Did you hear that? Not some, all of my character defects separate
me from God's will. Now, we are in the month of February, which is the second spiritual step. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That only means soundness of mind. So when we do steps 1, we admit we were powerless over alcohol. Our lives became unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand him. And here it is. 4, made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves. And that's where we identify our assets and our liabilities. And the liabilities are character defects. Those that which we know we have, and those that God only knows that we have, right? So character defects separate ourselves from God's will. And so I'm a tangible person. So look at the bottom of this lotion tab, right? We are born with natural instincts, right? The need to survive, the need to protect, the need for security, to create, right? And so when we are given these God-given instincts and we are born into this world, right? And we are born into a world with a sinful nature. Okay. And I ain't know what that meant either, right? Because listen, you don't know, right? But in my 4th step, I learned that this was the natural instincts here at the bottom, right? That's what I was born with. But because I'm in this world, right, until I know differently, then these natural and instinctual things that were given to me, right, begin to lose their intended purposes, right? Because now I'm self-centered. I want what I wanted. I'm in a family that has the same drive, the same desire. And so those natural instincts in me and others begin to, right, turn into defects. And so little by little, as I grow older, I'm getting more and more defects, and my natural instincts are way down here, right? So defects, character defects, and it says that the 7 deadly sins, you can start with that, right? So character defects. So you hear the word defects? That alone should say, what? You don't want a defective apple, right? You don't want a defective product, right? And so what do? You give it back. You turn it over. So what about yourself when you learn that you have some defects of character? You recognize the jealousy, the insecurity, the this, the that, taking us way beyond our natural instincts that were given to us by our Creator. And so in our 4th step, we identify what our character defects are, where they started, how they started, who helped start them, who contributed to them. And so it's more like a reading the first half of your book, right? And so when we get to identifying those liabilities, it says, it says, I ain't gonna put the words in the right. It says, all my character defects separate me from God's will. Didn't say some, it says all. Okay, so let's start with that. So then we get to step number 5, where we admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of those character defects. Whereas the obvious was I was jealous. My sponsor takes me, let's go a little deeper, Weena. Well, my jealousy was created by insecurity. Let's go a little deeper, Weena. My insecurity was covered up by I didn't want to be alone. Let's go a little deeper, Weena. Well, not wanting to be alone caused me to isolate. Well, Weena, let's get to the exact root. Fear. Fear is the most prevalent character defect that gives growth to a lot of other defects, right? All right, and so when you think about all those defects, it will continue to separate us from God's will, all right? So let's go here. I got 5 minutes. It says, when I ignore my association with him, I face the world and my alcoholism alone and must depend on self-reliance. Now, how many of you, like me, my dad taught me, where you at, Dad? Where you at? There you go up there. He taught me that you are responsible for you. You got the power. Whatever happens, you. It wasn't a reliance on nothing and nobody else but self. But as I began to live my life, I saw that I had limits, right? And so, and going through life, there was no understanding of a loving and caring God, right? Because I was taught that God was a punishing God. So therefore, how could I rely on him? But I had this craving. I had this yearning about what's it all about. So that seed was in there, but it wasn't time to sprout. All right. So then it says here, I have never found security and happiness through self-will, and the only result is a life of fear and discontent. So how many times have I had this great idea, want to get in this relationship, wanted this job, wanted this, and we had the power to control every aspect of everything. Yeah, you was cuckoo for Cocoa Pops then, but you just didn't see it. But that's okay, because life has a way of showing you ain't the chips, the dips, or the can it came in with, okay? And so, and all that did was perpetuate more fear, more discontent. And we stayed out there and we tried. And we recognized that we couldn't. We as human beings have limitations, but guess what? You can't tell us that, right? So life has to show us. All right, so let's continue. It says here, God provides the path back to him. Huh? How does God provide the path back to him? He created us, right? Hey, listen, you didn't create me, did you? I didn't create you, did I? No. So God creates a path back to him. We were born in sin and formed in inequity, right? So that means this life's journey is preparing us, will prepare us to find our way back to the Creator. Unknowingly to us. And that's a good thing, right? Because as long as we think that we are all that, and the more we live and the more we try, we will find out that we are not all that. And that there must be a power greater than us. And so through our knee bowing experience, that's why it says every knee shall bow. That's the way back. That's the pathway back. When you hit your knee bowing experience and you admit with your tongue that he is. Huh? So life's journey is created as a pathway back to him, right? And it also says here, and to his gift of serenity and comfort. Huh? So not only does he create a pathway for us to get back to him, he is allowing us to have this gift that he's waiting for to give us, right? The gift of serenity. Oh, my dad would often play that song, Peace Be Still. Peace be still. Oh, peace be still. Ooh. Peace be still, serenity and comfort. Those are the gifts that are waiting for us when we become God-reliance and not self-reliance, right? All right, so, and then, okay, I got a couple minutes, right? And then he says, right? But first, however, I must be willing. I must be willing to acknowledge my fears and understand their source and power over me. So when we had that knee-bowing experience and we confess with our tongue that he is, then it says, I must be willing. I must be willing to go back to my book and find out when did that happen and how did that happen. I must be willing to walk through the fear, face everything and recover instead of everything and run. I must go back and find out. I must be willing to find out where those fears, those character defects were started, formulated, attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. I must be willing, right? And so I must be willing, right, to identify the fears, right? And it says here, understand the source. Oh, how can you face anything if you don't do the research, right, of why you are fearful, right? That makes sense to me. So if you acknowledge fear, let's find out the source. And through that fifth step, we get to the exact nature, and it's fear. So why am I so fearful, right? And it says it in the beginning, because self-reliance failed us. That's why. All right, I'm going to close. And then it says here, I frequently ask God to help me understand how I separate myself from him. I ask God, my creator, to help me know how I separate myself from him. And when I learn how and what contributes to me separating myself from him, I pray for godly directions. I pray for wisdom, right? Spiritual in nature. And so let me close by saying, limits of self-reliance, yes. Dependence on God reliance, yes. Totally. So we can also do the same thing by wearing our mask, getting vaccinated, getting a booster shot, getting our children vaccinated, right? Socially distancing and all that, right? You can do your part. You're not self-reliant on that. So that what you can do to save your life and help save the lives of others, you had the power to do that. Okay? So as long as we ask ourselves, right? Something ain't right. Where is it coming from? Why am I feeling that way? What is the source? Help me to understand what I'm going through. And when you do that, you are not acknowledging that you yourself can't do it. You are limited. And therefore, you need a power, and power is greater than you, to help restore you to sanity. And that only means soundness of mind. Know your limitations. And if it's God's will, we'll join tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully the same time. No. Maybe. I don't know. You like this time? I like 6:40. All right. Because that means I get to go to my meeting, right? So I love you guys. Be safe. Put on the mask and have a blessed day. I love you. You love me. We are one big family with a great big hug and a kiss from me to you. Won't you say you love me too?